Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick Hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy, joined this week by Ruairi Walsh and James Mulcare, and also we have Kieran Collins all the way from Dubrovnik in Croatia. And we're going to probably have a look at the All Ireland Senior Hurling final, reflect on the year with a few teams of the year, highs and lows, and also look at the Tipperary management situation where Liam Cahill was announced as the new Tipperary manager. Lads, how are things?
Good, Mark. How are you keeping?
Yeah, good. I suppose we'd get right to it. The All Ireland Senior Hurling final. Rory, what were your thoughts of that match between Limerick and Kilkenny?
It was a great game. Anytime you get an All Ireland final, it comes right down to the wire. You know, it's going to have fans on tenterhooks, but at the same time, there was quality to it as well. Very high scoring game. I think it's at a half time. It was the highest scoring first half in the history of All Ireland finals. So that will kind of tell you the quality of it. And Limerick were good for their win, I thought. I know Kilkenny put them to the pin of their collar, but just like Clare had done and Galway had done, but they found a way each time of getting through it, and they did it again in the final. And just I suppose the arrival of Walter and also Richie Hogan kind of looked like they were giving Kilkenny that kick that they needed just at the right time. You kind of wonder maybe why Walter didn't start, because he caused so much havoc when he came on, just as being an outlet for long puckouts, because in the first half they weren't really getting much joy from the long puckout. But look, it made for an interesting end to the game and brought it right down to the wire. And again, look, I think this has been Limerick's most impressive All Ireland, because out of all their wins so far this year, they had to really scramble over the line against Galway, against Clare, against, as I mentioned, even at Tipperary, the Munster Championship had them in trouble at times, and they just kind of showed this composure, this I suppose we've heard before, it's become a cliche, sticking to their process, but you can see now in tight games what it does for them, the fact that they don't panic and they do stick to and believe in their coach Paul Kinnerk and the style of play he has taught them, and they just keep sticking with it, and it does get them over the line. So and also their bench as well. But look, I thought overall again, I thought it was a great final. Some great scores. We said a goal for the ages as well from Gerard Hegarty in the first half. Kilkenny showing unbelievable fight and spirit, and some great long range scores from Kilkenny as well that kind of got them back into it as well. And look, and at the end I think the better team probably on the day did win. But it looked shaky with a couple of minutes to go whether we were going to be looking at extra time when Richie Hogan landed the equaliser, and momentum was with Kilkenny, but and if Limerick just had that little swing back their way going into full time whistle. So it was again great final, and 3 in a row. They joined that club. I think they're the 4th county to do a 3 in a row, and you'd never have thought in 2018 when they won their first one that they were going to win 4 of the next 5. But and the team are still young. There's another few years in them as well, which is a worrying thing for all the rest of the counties out there, but fully deserved, and as I said, a great win.
Yeah, Rory. James, bring you in there. What were your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, similar to Rory, I thought it was an excellent final. Probably the best final since maybe that Tip Kilkenny drawn game in, what was that, 2014. And certainly the biggest test Limerick have had in the final out of the 4 that they've contested now. And I thought that Limerick were, for me, I thought Kilkenny, they played to their maximum, they played to their potential. And I don't think Kilkenny could actually come away thinking that that they didn't give it all out there. They left it all out in the pitch, died with their boots on, as they say. But I always kind of felt that Limerick were. I never kind of felt on the day that Kilkenny were going to overhaul Limerick. It seemed to me on occasions that Limerick, they were the better team, I thought, throughout, and Kilkenny just kept, like, anytime it looked like that Limerick looked like the team a few times that they might go away from Kilkenny. They went 5 or 6 points up a couple of times, and just every time that they looked like they were about to run away, Kilkenny bounced back with either a goal or a couple of scores, and just kept plugging away, kept digging in. Which is a testament to Kilkenny as well. They're just an incredibly hard team to shake off. But for me, again, we spoke about this at the Munster final. We spoke about it after the semi-final, and spoke again after the final yesterday. It's just Limerick's composure. I mean, they just seem to be able to execute no matter what, execute at a really high level, no matter what kind of pressure you put on them. And even on stuff like their shot selection and their accuracy. There's very few wides, and I can't remember too many wides in the final overall on both sides actually. And it's just down the stretch. I just think Limerick, they have that, I think you used the phrase there, Rory, sticking to the process. That's what they do. They just about ultimate trust in themselves, trust in the system, trust individually as well, and even players that are coming on from the bench. And yeah, as difficult as Kilkenny are to put away, it's very hard to see a team stopping. I'm looking there at the age profile of this Limerick team, and they've done it this year. This is probably their best. I'd agree with that as well, Roy. This is probably their best All Ireland in that they were severely tested in the Munster final, severely tested in the semi-final, and again in the final. They've come through 3 games where they've been put to the pin of their collar, and I would also add without their best player, and nobody's come up with the answers to beat them. And I think it's worrying for other counties. I heard. Was it Declan Hanna or Deemer Burns was on one of the morning radio stations, and he was having fruit for his breakfast the following morning. So that says to me that they're not thinking in the here and now. They're already looking. Their minds are probably already turning to 2023. And it's and you're looking at it right now. Keane Lynch come back in as well, and Casey will be fully fit, I imagine, by next year as well. So you're looking at it saying, who's going to stop next year? I don't know. But yeah, excellent final for me overall, Mark, and congrats to yourself and Kieran as well on the Limerick win.
Kieran, we'll bring you in there. What were your thoughts for the All Ireland Hurling final?
Yeah, so firstly I want to say how much I look forward to this final all week. I don't think many would have predicted at the start of the year, but to be fair to both teams and the conditions, they put on a hell of a game. I think it was probably one of the best All Ireland finals in the last couple of years, and I think from the point of view of intensity and tackling, both teams were ferocious, and these were points there, especially in the first half, you'd wonder how they could keep it going for the 70 minutes, especially with the heat. But to be fair to them, they did, and no team let up at any stage. I do think Limerick were the better team over the 70 minutes. They got ahead and stayed ahead for the whole game. But credit to Kilkenny, Limerick probably had a 4 to 6 point cushion at times, but Kilkenny always clawed it back. And when they got the second goal, back to the level, and you're thinking this game could go any way, but up steps Tom Morris. He scores 2 out of 3 points in a row for Limerick, and they're back on top again. And it's this never say die attitude in this Limerick team which really mesmerises me. And there was some inspirational performances all over the field, but I think it's just that they just don't seem to panic and they never give up. And I think this year probably the first year we've seen them really pushed, and to be able to pull it out of the bag with what Kilkenny threw at them, I think probably makes it even all the sweeter when we look back at it in a few weeks' time. Yeah, look, I know I said that not many would have predicted Kilkenny being here at the start of the year, and I suppose if you look back over the year, it's been probably a crazy year really. Starting with the league, and everyone was tipping Waterford and Cork to be the teams to put it up to Limerick at the end of the year, and their battles kind of fell away very early. But I think Clare then took up the mantle of that team, and really had a good Munster campaign, and threw the kitchen sink at Limerick in that Munster final. What's gone wrong since, I don't know, but this Kilkenny team from the very start of the year, okay, probably similarly to Limerick, not an overly good league, but they've built, and there was, when Cody was naming his team week on week, it was a different 15, but I think the last few games that same 15 stuck, and they were you know, they knew what they had to do, and they were, you know, they probably were snakes in the grass for a bit of it, but you know, I think they definitely deserve to be there come All Ireland final day. And I suppose if you're looking at Kilkenny, you know, they had some great performances all over the field, no more than I think TJ Reid was, for me, exceptional. Although he didn't score from play, I think he just created so much, and any good forward play that Kilkenny had going, like, he was front and centre to it. I thought he was exceptional. He created everything, and I think a lot of their forward attacks relied on him, and he played some part on it. So, you know, he is 35, and you're kind of thinking to the future, and you know, I do have that question mark that what or how good this Kilkenny team will be without TJ Reid in there. I just thought he was, you know, 9 points from place ball, is absolutely unbelievable striker of the ball, but he just he was just involved so much, and you know, I think he was part of the reason that they played so well. Now there is some young developing players coming in Kilkenny, and you know, Adrian Mullen had a great game. Owen Cody, well, he didn't have his best day, but we know how good he is. You know, Carey wing back, Keane Kenny midfield, and Mikey Butler. You know, this young guy, he is, you know, he's going to be up there with Sean Finn in years to come. You know, I think he's had some exceptional performances this year, and you know, again at the weekend, I think, you know, there's no fear in Kilkenny. These are the young guys that are being bred through. You know, they'll always be there. Once they keep up that attitude of never being beaten and work rate, you know, they'll never be too far away from Ireland. Then on the other hand, you know, you look at Limerick and how did they win it. You know, I suppose first of all, we all know about the intensity and the work rate Limerick bring to games, but also to get the best performance for the big day when they need it. You know, they seem to pull it out of the bag every time. No more so than our half forward line. You know, 113 from the half forward line is just unbelievable return. You know, Kyle Hayes, 4 points. Tom Morrissey, who needed a big game, another 4 points, and then, you know, Gerald Hegarty, like, he just pulls it out on the big day. 1-5 on top of 2-2 from last year. You know, he's just a man monster, and what a finished goal. And even the points he took from all over the field, they were, you know, it was just a performance at the edges, definitely. And I think when you go looking at the stats, it shows how in control the Limerick half forward line were. You know, they had 48 possessions during the game, but 17 of them, they were unmarked, you know, which just goes to show their movement. And also, you know, testament to Nicky Quaid on his puckouts, but you know, to show that they can get free nearly half of the times that they were in possession of the ball. You know, it just shows how well they moved and how well drilled they are. But you know, it's a big area for Limerick, and it's a big line that you know usually does perform and produce the goods for Limerick. But I think another stat for me, Limerick won 73% on the breaking ball from their long restarts. You know, so compare that to Kilkenny's of 33%. You know, so if they didn't win the long ball down, there were someone there for the breakdown. You know, so it's crucial and it's part of Limerick's play. But I think it's what makes them so hard to beat is that if they don't get it the first time, there's a very good chance they'll win the dirty ball after that. And like on the long puckouts, Limerick had 34 and 125 of their own, you know, which is an incredible stat. Which compare that again to Kilkenny's, who are known as long puckout specialists, but you know, they only won 13 of their own 32. So I think that's another sign where they might have struggled, and I think that's testament to Limerick's half back line. You know, I think things weren't going well, especially in the first half of Kilkenny, but I think bringing on Walsh at half time kind of steadied that ship a bit for him. But I think, you know, Limerick's half back line, half forward line, that the work they just do, it's just unbelievable. But aside from the hard work and the intensity, you know, I think for both teams, the efficiency, you know, Kilkenny had 10 wides, Limerick 12, you know, that's, you know, I think it's something that Limerick do struggle with, especially early season where the wides rack up. But you know, the big day, to be that efficient. And I'm sure there was tired bodies and there was, some wayward shooting could have been taken, but I think it's just a real testament to both teams that the efficiency on the day. So obviously, I think Kilkenny will be happy with their year, and there'll be things they'll work on and they'll develop. I think it's been probably a good year for them. Another Leinster title and a crack at the All Ireland champions. But for Limerick, I think they're now 16 matches unbeaten in the championship, and to beat Cork, Waterford, Tipperary, Clare, Galway and Kilkenny along the way, I think for me it leaves no question marks over how credible the All Ireland win is. If you look back at the year, I think teams have thrown everything at them and they've always come out on top. So I think maybe this might be just the sweetest one yet.
So guys, just in terms of the start, I know when we were previewing this in the podcast last week, we were thinking about Limerick being forewarned about that good early start coming from Kilkenny, but this time it was Limerick. And I suppose, Rory, what can you say about your old Hegarty on the final? Big players delivering on the big day, and again, St Patrick's man delivered in spades. What a dominant performance.
Yeah, and it was something that we kind of alluded to last week that might happen, is that the Limerick's full forward line being so potent in the Munster final and the semi-final, particularly Aaron Gillan, that Kilkenny half-back line would have one eye over their shoulder. And you cannot play Limerick half-forward line like that, kind of watching over your shoulder to make sure you're covering and helping out with the cornerbacks, because you take your eyes off Hegarty, Hayes and Tom Morrissey, and you're going to be in trouble. And the Limerick half-forward line scored 113 from play, which was phenomenal. 113 from play. Hegarty, of course, scoring 1-5 out of that total. And he gave a performance of the ages. For a big man, his touch is just sublime. Plus the ability to win ball in the air, because when Kilkenny had Limerick on the rack in the second half, Nicky was able to go along to Garrod, who was able to either win the ball and lay off a pass, win a free, or break it for somebody else. So that was equally as impressive as the scores he was getting, just winning that dirty ball at crucial moments of the game. And he was the most deserving of man of the match winners anyway. And that was from a team who had numerous star performers on the day. Declan Hannon as well had a great game. I thought at centre back his best game of the year, but Hegarty was just head and shoulders above everyone, not just literally, but performance-wise as well.
The pickup for the goal was that was absolutely phenomenal. And then when he after doing that pickup, then he just he hands off Reid as if he's not there, and then because you're even thinking at that point, right, that the position that he was in, it's still a difficult chance, right? You've got arguably the best goal, the best shot stopper out there, right? And the margin, where you have to put it to beat him, it's very, very it's the only spot where he could beat him is where he put it, and what a finish! It was an unbelievable goal, and he was it's kind of funny because in the semi-final we were lauding the full forward line, and the half forward line for Limerick probably were not at their best and got taken off, and then in the final it was nearly kind of roles reversed that the full forward line weren't as dominant as they have been, and it's just that half forward line, because even when say Blanchfield came on that second half and I wouldn't say he quietened Hegarty, but Hegarty maybe had a period there where he wasn't as dominant as he was, but then Kyle Hayes is coming into it, and the same Morrissey as well. So just I thought that half forward line was just ferocious on the day. And you mentioned the puck outs there, Rory, I thought obviously Kilkenny pushed up on they were obviously looking, that was their tactic to eliminate or to give Limerick no easy outball on the short puck outs. But it's just the movement of the half forward line as well. They do this kind of run where they kind of come in and then look to break out to the sides, and so it meant then that Nicky Quaid, when he was pinging the puck outs, he's pinging him up to a fella that's running onto the ball. So and once they get into hand, then they were just I thought that half forward line was just outstanding on the day. I was reading some stat there where Hegarty had 23 possessions throughout the game, which that's crazy. You'd be thinking there that if you get into double digits, you're doing well and you're having a really good impact on the game. But 23 is just that's ridiculous. Yeah, and like just like not, as I said, not just him, but like the whole half forward line was just that's the winning of the game right there. You know,
that was the difference, wasn't it? Because if you were to pick like one line in the field where Limerick absolutely blew Kilkenny away, it was that half forward line versus half back line. I think if you were to give Cody like if he could repeat Groundhog Day, repeat the All Ireland final day again, I think he'd really have to think about his position of the half back line. And even the way Limerick were able to get Hegarty across on Carey for a couple of puckouts and freed him up, like Kilkenny didn't follow them man for man on puckouts, and it kind of let Limerick players get loose. But the timing of that, you were on about James Nicky's puckouts into space, but just for that to go right, the player has to be hitting that space as the ball is arriving there, and they just have it to a T. Like, they never arrive too early where they're, a second or two waiting for the ball. They never arrive too late where they miss it. They're arriving just as the ball is bouncing. It's just like sublime timing, and they're just, I suppose, they're in sync like with their keeper, which is a huge thing. Another thing I think Cody would look at as well, because obviously it was very obvious in the first half Kilkenny's tactics and puckouts were they were going to go along. They obviously weren't as confident working the ball out as Limerick are, so they thought that they could win primary ball with TJ and stuff going along. I think he'd be sorry he didn't start Walter in that case, because apart from TJ in the air, Limerick dealt with the high ball pretty well, and even TJ at times, I think he caught 2 or 3 balls in the first half, but still they targeted him about 10 times. So Limerick were able to just manage to bring it to ground, and then they were winning the second ball. So I think tactically, that's Cody, you could say he did lose the tactical battle in that case in the first half with the puckouts and the position of his half back line. As well, and it's a rare thing to say, I suppose, with Cody, with his experience in finals. Then you could say he did get the substitutes right, though, because all their subs made an impact, Kilkenny, and they were finishing a lot stronger than they had started the game, So, he might have got things wrong from the start, but it's probably a good sign of a manager and experience that he was able to rectify them during the game. But again, if he had a chance to repeat it, I don't think he'd make those mistakes from the start again.
Blanchfield is an interesting one, isn't he? Because he was very good for Kilkenny throughout the league, right? And then, he kind of didn't really get, here and there, didn't really get much of a look in to the championship, certainly not the business end of the championship. And then he comes on again there the last day, and I thought, in a line that was, that was causing an absolute wreck, and I thought he kind of steadied the ship a little bit for them. It's just I don't know. Cody seemed I'm not really sure why. It's not like he fell out of favour because he lost a form or anything. It's just I'm not really sure. Yeah, it's just Cody made that call, but he would have been an interesting one. As you said, it's easy to be, with hindsight to look back and say they could have done this or that, but I don't know. Yeah, in my head, I there are things obviously that Kilkenny could look back on and say that they could have done things differently. But at the same time, I think a lot of things went right for Kilkenny on the day in terms of their performance. I don't really think they could give more in terms of asking for effort on the day. I thought they were just they emptied the tank really. But it's just. Yeah, they're tactically all right. Cody kind of, he didn't seem to alter that. Well, he did make switches in personnel. He still seemed to persist with that strategy and the puckouts, which I don't know. You were touching on there, Rory. Is the accuracy from Quaid and this stuff is he must be I think he's on puckouts alone. If you were picking, it's very difficult to pick. Between the two goalkeepers in terms of if you're picking who's the better of the two. Murphy has him probably on shot stopping, but on distribution, I'm not saying that Murphy is any slouch in distribution, but Quaid's puckouts are just they're reading it before he's even they're completely in sync. It's very, 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 very well drilled, and very hard to stop as well, because by the time it comes in, it's not like they're getting static ball. They're running onto it, and they're once it's into hand, they're almost impossible to stop. Then they've got such physicality that Limerick half forward line. So it's it's very, very impressive to watch.
Even going into that puck out strategy a bit, thought opening half wise, Limerick's tactic, particularly full forward line retreating 30-40 metres, giving Mikey Butler the ball. Kilkenny got destroyed in the short puckouts in the opening period, and then there was no surprise really that Walter Walsh had to come on. I mean, they did go route one and looking for Walter and TJ Reid. I have to mention TJ Reid, lads. I mean, what a phenomenal performance from TJ. Even in that first half, when after 6 minutes it looked as if Limerick were going to run away with it. Like Aaron Gillan had a superb goal chance when he got the ball over the head of Hugh Lawler.
He lost the Hurling, didn't he? But
Yeah.
like if they had gone,
like that. He'd looked ominous.
An 8-point start, like, or whatever, 7 or 8 point start, and like that would have really tested Kilkenny then. All right, like, but you're right. Like Reid was like, I don't think did he score from play? Did he? Not sure if he did. But like his all-round contribution. He had. The only thing I remember that he did that was that he had a chance there, and that in the first half, wasn't it, where he coming up to half time, he had the ball on the left hand side, and he like you wouldn't expect him to put that wide, but he put that wide when, you know, at that point Kilkenny were kind of they're kind of putting pressure on Limerick. That's the only thing I can remember him that he missed. But I thought, in general play, he was outstanding.
Even though he didn't score from play, he actually won. He won 3 or 4 of the frees himself, you know, which are as good as the score from play if he's the one winning the frees. But yeah, it's true. Like as he said in the first half, when Kilkenny were struggling, especially like short ball, as you said, Mark, they had to go along. They had nobody really winning except for TJ was the only one who stood up really in that spell and kept Kilkenny in the game when they could have, you know, that margin could have gotten bigger and bigger, and they could have been, you know, out of the game by half time. But like it was remarkable really that they had, you know, fought their way back to 4 points in the first half, where like they were, you know, out of the game for huge spells of that first half.
It was kind of that first half was kind of interesting because you like Kenny did, like, you know, when they clawed it back to work their way back into the game, you're kind of looking at the scoreboard thinking, geez, I thought Limerick were about 7 or 8 points ahead here, you know, like because they were on top, but it's just like it was, I suppose you'd call it really kind of typical Kilkenny traits, and where they dog it out, and their work rate, like both teams' work rate throughout was very, very impressive. I think like there was Limerick had over, I think, 100 hooks and blocks and Kilkenny in the 90s, like, which is just, it shows you, like, you know, the work rate. Like, I don't know, I'd be comparing looking at those stats and comparing them to, you know, some of Cork's performances when, you know, they wouldn't be hitting anywhere near those numbers, I'd say. So like, and this is done as well. But like, I look at Hagerty, and like one of the scores he got there towards the end, he's still pushing fellas off after like 70 minutes of that performance in that heat as well. And you know, it's just it's a testament to their commitment and testament to their strength and conditioning as well, both sides.
And the remarkable thing about Hegarty is when he was a minor and under 20, okay, he was really athletic and effective, is the word you used to describe him. Like you would have thought he's striking needed a lot of work, his touch needed a lot of work. You could not see the transformation into the player he is now. Maybe it's kind of a sign as well for maybe underage. Like I'm just thinking of squads here in the Limerick Academy where we would have had very, you know, tall athletic players, and you're kind of saying, oh well, they don't have the hurling, and maybe like it's worth persisting with some of these guys, because as we saw with Hegarty, like the hurling can come late for some of these players, and the fact that they're, you know, already physically fast and tall or whatever, it's just something, you know, to maybe think about. I suppose that often we read off guys that seem a bit awkward if or whatever underage, and then suddenly they, like, you can just see it with good coaching from the senior team, and obviously he has the mindset himself to go away and practice and work on his touch and work on his striking. Like that just doesn't happen from going into Limerick training. He obviously is putting massive hours in himself in his own time, but like he has changed into like you know, possibly like he's up there in the top 3.5 hours in the country anyway. And for Limerick, and his All Ireland performance for Limerick have been outstanding. So it's just a sensation.
He just turns up. He delivers on the big day, doesn't he? It's like this is a kind of constant team with him now. He's almost like he's developed into like the prototype half forward here. Like but like that performance on Sunday was just. I was just like I said, we said it already. Like with just the goal, like you watch back that goal, it's just like not even the finish, like it was just the pick up and the push off, just brushing away defender, and I just you really admire it.
And you know what as well, the couple of red cards he got earlier this season against Galway in the league and Clare in the round robin, I think that's helped him, because like in fairness he was loose with the Hurley in the last couple of years. So one thing you say about him, but like his discipline is completely like since that game, and he does get a lot of punishment himself, but he's kept his discipline completely, in control. And I just think that's another string to his bow now, that you could think before maybe our opposition might say you might get a rise from or whatever, but like that's completely tidied up, and so maybe made him a bit more focused on what he's doing, and so yeah, in a way I think he's come out a bit the better for it.
That's actually a very good shout. I didn't think of that, but you're right. Like, yeah, because before you would have it, like discipline is something that you would have looked to target him with. But he like, I suppose the greatest compliment you can give him on that is I don't recall him getting involved in anything. Since then, like, or even asking any question of the ref. So yeah, you're right. Like that's a very valid point.
And I think I remember at the end of the Munster final where there was a row as Clare and Limerick went into the tunnel, and Marty Morrissey pointed out Hegarty was walking in 30 metres behind everyone. Like, so I think even himself, like, he's just conscious of it now. And yeah, it was Marty had to, of course, say Gearóid Hegarty is definitely not involved in this one.
But it's some body of work done in All Ireland Hurling finals for Gearóid Hegarty. You think back to 2020, scored 7 points. 2021 against Cork, 2-2. And then culminating in this year with a 1-5 score, which is unbelievable for the player.
I think even the team itself, Mark, like this is like the third All-Ireland final, right, in a row that they've gone past the 30 points mark, Limerick, as a team. That's that's just, I don't know, like that's you said it there, Rory, like in 2018 when they picked Galway seemed to be kind of running out of steam that summer. You wouldn't have thought like that Limerick, they've just gone on to another level. Like 3 finals in a row to score over 30 points. I mean, like if you're hitting 30 points, that's a rarity in itself. But to do it in 3 finals in a row, yeah. Like, and like I should also add as well, like Kilkenny 226 to lose for their beaten side as well, which I think is the highest. I think it's the highest total by a losing team ever, isn't it? 226. It's just it's ridiculous. Like the efficiency levels on the shooting, I thought, were off the charts the last day.
Absolutely. I think Kyle Hayes as well in half forward has to be given, and Tom Morrissey, as you said, you've mentioned it at the start of the podcast, but even Kyle Hayes more prominent in open play, particularly in that half forward line, shortening his grip considerably, I thought, on his striking technique from semi-final to final. Thought he was brilliant. Tom Morrissey as well really stands up on the big days as well. I mean, I think he had about 4 or 5 assists along with his 4 points, and a few of those points in the second half were pretty clutch, guys, and we'll probably come to that in terms of that. We expected the Kilkenny spurts, the scoring sprees, and they certainly came with the Ryan goal and Keohane goal, aided in no small measure by Walter Walsh and TJ Reid. I suppose Kilkenny very much on the up, and Limerick's composure was being tested at a maximum, but I suppose once Richie Hogan equalised in the 63rd minute, game was fairly in the melting pot. But I suppose, Rory, we talked about it over and over again this season. It's just the composure of Limerick, refusing to panic, trusting the process, and 5 unanswered points, and bench being a huge part of that as well, with likes of Cathal O'Neill and Conor Boylan stepping up with huge scores.
Yeah, and again, I suppose when I said Limerick scored 113 from play, I never included Cathal O'Neill, who come on got a point, and Boylan. There's 2 more scores, like, so you're looking at maybe 115 overall, which is, it's incredible really. But and this is one time I suppose as well where both benches, and it was something that was pointed out last week, was Kilkenny looked to have quite a strong bench themselves, and it was going to be a factor in the hot day. But look, both teams I suppose matched each other in that. Limerick and Kilkenny both kind of, in a way, the benches nullified each other, which, because they both had a big impact when they came in. And it is one thing. The only thing I might fault is I just thought at stages, maybe with 30 minutes to go, talk about Limerick's composure in possession, but they lost their shape slightly and started to drift back the field a bit, which is something we hadn't seen from them, where they went too deep and ended up then once or twice hitting ball out, and they had no out ball there at all. But they kind of rectified that again, I suppose. But it's just, but on the ball, they were so composed and looking for the player in the best position. I know it's a simple thing to say in sport, give the ball to the guy in the best position, but sometimes in hurling, your instinct is hit the ball as far as you can. But Limerick, they do have it well matched, and they know when to go along towards Galan. They know when to mix it up a bit as well. It's not all short either. So that keeps the opposition on their toes as well, that they know that there's players in behind that can hurt you as well if a long ball goes in. So it was just, again, as we said, it's just this year, we didn't really have to see composure from them last year, because they were never really put into a situation like this. Against Tipperary at half time, I suppose what they showed them is they didn't panic, maybe more so, but coming down the stretch, they had the game won. Whereas this year it was completely different, and coming down the stretch, it was anyone's game in the semi-final, Munster final, and the All Ireland final, but it ended up being, Limerick who were the ones that got over the line. So it just shows that. I suppose next year in a tight game, if it does come down to the wire again between Limerick and whoever they're playing, other teams are going to try and match this now and just not panic and keep composure. It's easier said than done, though. Limerick have gone and done it.
Even if you go back to the Waterford game, they were kind of cruising in that game, and then Waterford hit them with two goals in a couple of minutes later on, where they brought it back. Like, other teams could, because you'd be thinking there, right, if we thought we had this game won, and the natural reaction would be to kind of panic here, the Waterford are back in with a score, but no, the only game, right, that I'd say in championship that they kind of cruised through. And even in the Cork game, they had a bad start in that Cork game, and that game was still level, we'll say. And then it started, and then it started the second half, and Cork brought it back level. That was the only game really where they kind of powered through. Every other game, and you said even the Tip game, they were actually tested. And I don't know, a lot of that down, Lynch for one other good thing about this Limerick team is their adaptability. It doesn't, if someone's off or someone drops out, they've just, players can just slot in anywhere. And but Lynch, I think the loss of Lynch can't be, you can't overstate how big a loss that he is to them. And I think it's, I don't know, frightening is probably it's too strong a word, but it's if you're involved with a county that's not Limerick, it's worrying that. To see the manner in which they won it this year, put to the pin of their collar, particularly in the last three games, and they've done it without their best player, to come back in next year is, I'm looking at the landscape thinking, they're not going to say it obviously, but they're looking here as, they obviously won the three in a row, the first side outside the traditional big three to do that, and they could be looking at, Kilkenny came up short for 5 in a row. This Limerick team could go very close to that five in a row, I'd say.
Yeah, the only thing is, if they keep getting into tight games, you know what I mean. If the games keep going down to the wire, surely at some stage somebody will come out the other side of it. Well, speaking of Lynch, I just heard he's injured. There's another couple of months recovery in it, so he's going to be a loss for Patrick's Well in the championship. A huge loss for Patrick's Well, obviously. So yeah, there's I know, was it Red or someone said to me this week that he's 2 months recovery at least from between now and when he's able to hurl again. So, I suppose that's bringing him into mid-September. So you're looking at hopefully, for Patrick's Well's sake, they're still in the championship when Lynch gets fit again.
That was a nice touch as well from Hannon, wasn't it, to bring it up, and you consider they be rival club mates, but or club players, but I suppose that highlights as well there's obviously great unity, they're real sense that, I don't know, that they're nearly like a club team the way they're playing for each other, and hopefully that's we see Lynch back back playing and back to his best before long.
Absolutely. No, he's I think he's just an integral part of that side. I think his attitude towards life and hurling, I think was mentioned once or twice by Limerick players post the game, just in terms of his, I suppose, composure, his confidence in terms of the lads delivering on the day. And I thought it was a lovely touch there as well. But I suppose with Keane, it's been, kind of a year probably to forget, really. Had done an awful lot of hurling at the start of the year, guys, as well, particularly with NUIG, Fitzgibbon Cup, and how that ended up, particularly in the final down in Carlow as well. So look, I think Keane will regroup and become stronger. Peter Casey as well, just coming back to full fitness as well. You've Cathal O'Neill, you've Adam English, you've young guns coming in now next year, really looking to get a starting berth in that Limerick side. So
you're not making us. You're not making us. You're making us a bit nervous, Mark. The more you keep talking there, like it's.
Yeah, but I mean, like they're there to be shot at now.
They certainly are. I think you said it there, Rory. Like that. The more close games they have, eventually you will get caught right in one of those. But I suppose it's a bit like the Dublin footballers, isn't it? At the minute, like where they were involved in a few very close ones there with Mayo and the like, which could have gone one way or the other. But it's just they had this ability that they'd see those tight games through. And obviously Limerick, the last 2 years, they've kind of strolled to the All Irelands really. But this year now is it's another side to them where you see them when it's actually put up to them. And like I go back to that Munster final, like whatever about the semi-final and the final, but that Munster final, Clare threw everything at them, and they still they still found a way. Like they still couldn't be, Clare still couldn't knock them off. So like it's going to be very, very difficult for a team to get over the hump to actually beat them. And it's now what's their unbeaten record now in the championship? Is
16
games?
16.
Yeah. 16 games. Yeah. So that's like you're talking here. Like we saw that Kilkenny team in the mid to late noughties, and even into the early part of the last decade, you kind of thought you wouldn't see a team like that again for a very, very long time. And lo and behold, here comes a team, 8-10 years later that you're looking at that might actually be as good as them. It's testament to this, not just the players but the setup that Limerick have as well. They've had like Kylie is the right man to be in charge there, and Caroline Curd as well, and they're a well-oiled machine.
Plus Paul Kinnerk as well.
Fabulous
tactician as well there as well. Just it's such an established backroom staff, along with the Limerick, and also JP McManus there as well, around the scenes as well. But no, I thought an incredible All-Ireland final, really, to be fair.
I was going to say, Mark, don't forget the two Claremen involved, Alan Cunningham and Angus O'Brien as well.
Yeah. No, it's been a complete team and squad effort and management effort this year. I mean, been an awful lot of challenges for Limerick. I know we spoke at the start of this podcast series in February, but a very underwhelming league from a Limerick standpoint. Some of the media hordes were kind of maybe questioning a few things, but Limerick again, pre-season training, preparing for the championship, and they've gotten it absolutely spot on despite a few personnel issues and the fitness front. But again, maybe Rory, closing off here with Kilkenny, reflections of Kilkenny's season. I think it's a promising side here, but I suppose next season, where are we thinking? There was a few rumours here about Brian Cody, but I assume Brian Cody will be back for his 25th season, surely?
Yeah, the only thing was I saw one statement where it said like Kilkenny County Board are waiting to release a statement, which that made me think maybe he is. And just kind of watching him, his reaction afterwards, it was like he was soaking it all in, which was maybe a sign of a guy. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. A sign of a guy that was going. But look, Cody, I think, and in particular, praised his players to the hilt, which I suppose he hadn't really done before with teams that had lost. But I think he knew that they had, like, as James alluded to, had thrown everything at Limerick, and he knew that they had given a huge performance in that final, and just were very close to it, but just didn't get over the line. And I think he sensed that, like, it wasn't like his players had kind of capitulated in the final or anything at all like that. It was the opposite, if anything. So yeah, it's just he's a remarkable manager. His record is second to none. I don't think we talked about maybe the Kilkenny team maybe being surpassed that team of 10 years ago, but I don't think Brian Cody's record will ever be surpassed anyway. That's one for the ages. But look, his longevity, I suppose, and just kind of adapting as hurling has changed, how he's been able to kind of adapt his teams as well. Sometimes this year we kind of spoke about maybe they're a bit slow to do that, but in fairness to them, they have, he got a Kilkenny team that people respected, but nobody really rated as, top 2 in the country. Got them to, within a whisker winning All Ireland. So that was a massive achievement to him and his management team as well. And just with the way the Munster and Leinster Championships are structured, you'd imagine they're going to be in the knockout stages again next year. And once they get to the knockout stages, they're just a different animal. So they're going to be there. They're going to be around. And again, it was Derek McGrath this year who said the team that beat Waterford will be walking up the steps. But generally, it's the team that, if anyone beats Kilkenny, it's the team that beats Kilkenny usually walk up the steps. So he might revise that comment for next year, I think.
But he was kind of correct, Derek McGrath. If he said a team that beats Waterford would be collecting the cup, he'd have been absolutely spot on, rather than the team. But on Cody to be, I suppose you don't know what you don't know. It's hard to read into him, but it kind of be strange. It would be a strange landscape, like you're going you're 1998, which is crazy. Like next year, Cody will be there, right? The Offaly team from 1998, the Jubilee team, will be paraded there, and then Cody came in at the end of that 98 season. So that's last year, he's been criticised the last couple of years, right? The kind of rumours of discontent in Kilkenny, and obviously people that had worked under him before, would have been pushing back on that, saying that people have no right to be questioning with his record, which is true. And but it's been kind of strange, I think, because they finished on an upward curve after an indifferent round robin in Leinster. Even though they did win Leinster, they had you'd say they were patchy, but semi-final and the final were their 2 best performances of the year, and so they finished on an upward curve where I would say Kilkenny fans are coming away from that with optimism. They probably, I'd say they probably even themselves weren't fancying it going into that Leinster final against Galway after having lost to Wexford. Semi-final then, Clare, I don't know if your average Kilkenny fan were, because it looked like Munster and Clare were ahead of them at that point, and finished on a very high note. So it would be, maybe he thinks it's the right time to go out him, but I don't know. I suppose it'll be ultimately up to Cody, but at the back of his head, he'll be thinking, can he win All Ireland with his team? And he's looking at the last day there with Limerick, and they were close enough. So I suppose ultimately for him, it'll come down to whether he thinks he can raise it another level again, that they could actually get an All Ireland out of it. It's hard to know. The flip side of that is that, I don't know, there was a lot of criticism against him with Henry, with the handshake as well. And, there's a lot of media speculation on that, and people commenting, this, that and the other against him. And I don't know, maybe that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and maybe he decides to go this year. But I suppose we'll wait and see what comes out for news from Kilkenny on that front. But if you're saying that they're preparing a statement, I hope that they're not going to the statement writer who wrote the Tip County Board statement.
I don't think it's anything like that. I think it was something like they're waiting for Brian Cody. It just sounded like everywhere. I can't remember. I think it was in the Examiner already yesterday, but it just kind of looked like that change was about to happen. But it would be a good time for him to bow, because he could say, I've taken Kilkenny to within a score of All Ireland champions. So if somebody can improve him a bit more, I've taken them to this level. All they need is a bit more improvement. But you'd wonder, would it be like Manchester United when Ferguson left? Will the dominoes all fall when Cody goes?
It's hard. It's hard to it's hard to know, but it'd be quite like we saw there what happened with Tip, right? When Liam Cahill obviously was committing to the second year of Waterford, and then the vacancy comes up there. In Tipperary, and he's, lo and behold, he's gone from Waterford and he's in there with Tipperary. But I be interesting to know what, if Cody did go, where does that leave Shefflin? I know he has his term up in Galway, but I would imagine the Kilkenny, nobody's ever going to repeat Cody's longevity. But if you're looking at it from Henry, right, let's just say, I don't know, someone does come in and if the Kilkenny job becomes available, and Henry's going to want that job, and like if you're playing devil's advocate here, say somebody did come in and do a Cody-like job to Kilkenny, then that would mean then the Kilkenny job wouldn't become available again for another 25 years for Henry. Do you know what I mean? So maybe, like, if it does come available, it'd be interesting to see what happens in Galway.
Yeah, all indications up here is that Henry is firmly committed to Galway after the season he's impressed with what he's seen, and year 2 of the third contract he's going to commit to, I would say. Who would want this job? The Poison Chalice, the Alex Ferguson kind of conundrum here. Who would be the David Moyes to step in? It's a massive legacy. It's a massive pressure to be put onto someone to kind of start delivering it again, like what Brian Cody has achieved in his managerial career. I think is a complete Poison Chalice, whoever takes it on first up.
Yeah, it's very and you're talking like it's 8 years since Kilkenny won All Ireland now, so it'll be 9 years next year. You're right. Like, you're coming in there, fellas that's been 17 All Ireland finals. It's a level of success that you're never going to see repeated in any sport again. So you're correct there. Like, yeah, it's similar to following in Ferguson's footsteps, right? If you compare it to the soccer, like, yeah, and no easy shoes to fill there for sure.
Absolutely. Suppose, boys, can we get reflections on the year, maybe team of the year from all of you? Maybe we'll start with James, 1 to 15.
Yeah, well, goalkeepers it's between the two goalkeepers for me that were in the finals, and a very difficult one to choose on this one, because Murphy's probably a bit more spectacular with some of the saves that he's made, but I'm looking just there really on it's like Quaid has been unbelievably consistent. Couldn't do anything really for the 2 goals that they conceded, nor could Murphy for the Hegarty one. I think I just edged it. Well, Eddie won it, and just because I think his puckouts, his just distribution really sets Limerick in motion, and I think really just on. I slightly edged it to Quaid. For me, he'd be my my pick for goalkeeper. And then full back line. Then I think Hugh Lawler was very good for Kenny throughout, and was good again the last day. And he did a good job in Gillan, full back there. I think I'd have him in there. At the cornerback, I certainly have Barry Nash in there. I think he was ultra consistent all year, been excellent all year, and one of the standout performers. And then an honourable mention, I suppose, to Mikey Butler, at cornerback as well. But I think I'd plump for Sean Finn there. So I'd have 2 Limerick cornerbacks and Kilkenny man at full back. And in the half back line, I like Hannon the last day. I just thought was excellent at centre back, and just so composed. I had him as centre back. I think for me, Diarmaid Burns wing back is a no-brainer, and I think for me actually Burns would be hurler of the year. I just thought he's just so consistent throughout the year, and another massive performance again the last day. And I was struggling then on the like. I thought Conan was very good for Clare when he moved back in there, but equally so, I thought that Pádraig Mannion for Galway was very good. I'm just going to give it. I just going to give because he obviously was missing the semi-final through injury, Conlon, but I think his performances throughout Munster are just outstanding. I thought, and I'm going to go for Hannon with even though you're kind of rejigging it around a little bit there, but I'm going to stick Conlon on the wing with Burns. Midfield then for me, that's probably the one area actually that Limerick probably didn't have an outstanding, not that they had a bad year, they didn't probably have an outstanding year in midfield. But I thought Adrian Mullen for Kilkenny was very good in the last couple of games. I think I'd plumb for Adrian Mullen in there, and I thought that David Fitzgerald was excellent for Clare, and a lot of people are probably going to overlook what Clare did on the back of what at that semi-final, but I think they lit up the championship in Munster, so I'm going to go once they came in there. Half forward line for me then is I'm going to go with obviously Haggerty. It's that's a no-brainer there, and going to jig it around a little bit here. You could put obviously Kyle Hayes there, but I'm going to go with TJ Reid, and I think after Conor Dehan was also excellent for Cork, but they went out a bit early, and I'm going to put Shane O'Donnell then also there as well for me. So Haggerty, Reid, and O'Donnell in the half forward line, and I'm going to move then, even though I'm going to move Kyle Hayes then into full forward line, and Tony Kelly. Yeah, he had a bad semi-final, but he was on for Hurler of the Year up until that semi-final, and he was like, some of the performances in Munster were just like off the charts. He has to be there, and Gillan for me then as well. It'll be in that full forward line, the last member.
Lovely. Rory?
Yeah, so I'll just name the team, and Mark, if you have any questions about the team, you can ask them afterwards, or any glaring omissions, right? So I go Nicky Quaid in goals, Finn, Hugh Lawler and Nash, Burns, Conlon and Mannion. So there was a bit of controversy. I went for Conlon ahead of Hannon for the reasons James had him in there for. Tony Kelly and Mullen midfield. I put Tony Kelly midfield to make space for more forward, so I kind of rejiggle things around. Haggerty, TJ Reid, Shane O'Donnell, and Gillan, Flanagan, and Conor Whelan. So it was between Flanagan and Hayes for me, and I just thought, okay, Flanagan hadn't the greatest final, but he was superb there too. Especially the Munster final was outstanding. So that was a flip of a coin really between the two of them. And same with Conlon and Hannon. I just thought like Conlon was immense for Clare, and we could just see, I suppose, in the semi-final, it just showed what a loss he was, that the team fell apart really without him.
Conor Whelan is one actually there that he was outstanding as well. I forgot about, like, and he was one. You know, I look at that Cork game when Galway weren't great in that Cork game, and like, I know that Cork left a lot of scores behind them, but he was the one that was really driving Galway forward that day. Like, and you know, on the day that and he was excellent throughout. Like, yeah, you could make a very strong case for him. Right, so I like what you're doing there. Yeah, you've eliminated Kelly from the forward, so we got him in the team to give you another slot. Like, yeah. So
well, it's true what you said. Like, midfield, there was gaps in midfield this year.
I think so. Like, yeah.
So now, so that means I don't have David Fitzgerald on, but actually, I thought I was going to get stick for having 3 Claremen, but James, you had 4, so I don't feel so bad now.
Very welcome to 6 Mile Bridge anytime, James Mulcare.
I don't think people are kind of overlooking what Clare did on the back of that semi-final, right? You kind of, they were unbelievable in Munster, and I don't think that can be overlooked. Like, some of those games in Munster were like the perform. Like, if you think I know, like, Waterford were, whatever was going on in Waterford, like, was like that last game where they played against Waterford, they rested players, right, and they went out there and they absolutely blew them out of the water. And like, you can say whatever you want about what was going on in Waterford at the time, but Waterford had to get a result in that game. So, like, and Waterford were the team that, you know, I fell into the trap at Waterford before the championship, thinking that you know, if Limerick weren't going to win the All Ireland, then Waterford might. I thought they were looked the most likely. So I just think I think it's harsh and Clare to blow out their season on the back of, you know, a systems failure against Kilkenny. So that's what kind of my thinking on this, really.
I suppose, James, one way of looking at it as well is Clare only lost 1 match in 70 minutes this year. Kilkenny lost 3.
Well, that's it as well. Like, yeah. Like, well, it's just the nature of these things as well, isn't it? That the final ultimately has the ultimate say in how these teams are picked. But like, if you like, it's, and I know, like, Kilkenny did finish with their 2 best performances of the year, but if you were picking your team off the back of the Leinster final, I don't know. Yeah, you'd be looking at, like, Kilkenny were very patchy up to that point. So like, Clare were, I don't know, like Clare were, even though I know Kilkenny hammered them in the semi-final, but Clare were more consistent in their games over if you take the championship as a whole. But it's just that they had a complete systems failure in their last game, so that's what people are going to probably take home for the year with them. But that's unfortunate for them. But like I said, I think it's harsh to overlook what they did in Munster on the back of that.
And for Hurler of the Year, actually, I forgot to mention, Mark, I suppose, obviously, like before the final, you wouldn't have really put, I know Hegarty had, as we said last week, he had been very good for Limerick, but he hadn't been, as outstanding as he had been in the previous couple of championships. But, or even TJ Reid was just getting stronger as the championship went on. But after the final, like both of them really threw their hat into the ring for Hurler of the Year. But for consistency throughout, for me, it was between Burns and Barry Nash, and I just went with Barry Nash. I know in the final he didn't get in as much ball as others, but I just thought he's kind of like the complete all-around hurler. He contributes with scores, his pace, his delivery as well. Like Limerick were able to do this thing at a short puck out, where they obviously had it worked to a T, where Barry Nash was the one taking the ball off the half-back at pace and delivering to the full forward line. And we spoke there about Flanagan and Gillan doing so much damage in previous games. I'd love to see how many of the scores they got came directly off of Barry Nash delivery, because his striking is superb. He's just he's really become the real modern cornerback now. That before you had a cornerback there who, if you didn't touch the ball and his man didn't score, he'd done a great job. But Barry Nash just has kind of blown that out of the water now of what is expected of a modern cornerback. So for me, and again, as James was saying, consistency throughout all games. I can't really remember Barry Nash putting the foot wrong in the championship, to be honest.
He had the second. I saw that stat. Like, he had the second most possessions in the after Hegarty. The match was
because it's not something you would have noticed watching it.
No, it's not. So I saw that stat. Like, he had something like so Hegarty had 23, I think, and I saw where Nash had 13 or 14 maybe, which is like that's. From it as well, but it's very, very close between the two. But and like, when was the last time that a defender got normally, obviously, it's your midfielders and your kind of marquee forwards that get in there, but just Burns for me. I just thought he was so consistent throughout, and like again the last day I thought he was excellent for him as well, and then like ice cool on the freeze as well when Limerick needs him, So that's who I'd be giving it to.
Yeah, I suppose I'll have to put my team of the year in the public domain. I suppose not really kind of deviating too much here. Nicky Quaid and goal for me. I think the puck out strategy differentiates himself from all others. I think he's a class apart there and showed last Sunday. Sean Finn, I'm going to give a notable mention here to fullback that doesn't get the airplay or the TV, but Tommy Doyle from Westmeath, again, has had an absolute standout year for Westmeath. I'm thinking of that Wexford game, that draw in Mullingar. Tommy Doyle produced, I thought, one of the best fullback performances of the year. He's not going to get the All-Star, but I think he would be my notable fullback here over Hugh Lawler. I think Barry Nash, for me here, Rory, I agree with you. I think he should be a Hurler of the Year candidate or win it. I think he's revolutionised the cornerback position. And Dermot Burns, 5. Yeah, I was torn between Declan Hannon and John Conlon. I've slightly edged it to Hannon just based on the All-Ireland final. I would not be surprised if John Conlon gets it, though. I think he's been a huge factor for Clare this year. Fintan Burke from Galway. I think his stock value has risen substantially after Gerard Hegarty's All-Ireland final performance. I think he didn't put a foot wrong for Galway this year. He's provided an awful lot of attacking width for Henry Shefflin's side, sideline cuts, and defensively very tight. So I'd go with Fintan Burke from St Thomas's. Yeah, the midfield, Lee Chin I've kind of put in here with Tony Kelly in midfield. I think you just have to accommodate these two guys. They're class players. I think Tony Kelly was just outstanding in the Munster Championship. You can argue all you want about the semi-final, but I mean, that's, one of those ESPN sports moments, the Munster final, the sideline cut. That alone should guarantee him a kind of an all-star. I suppose going into 10, 11, 12, Gerard Hegarty for me, I'm going to go Conor Cooney here. And the reason I say that is the mantra left by Joe Canning. Someone had to kind of lead the line here. And I also have Conor Whelan in this lineup as well. But I thought Conor Cooney particularly was key component here for Galway, particularly from a half-forward line perspective. Scored 60-plus points for Galway during the championship campaign. Desi Hutchinson from Waterford. I think it would be remiss of us not to mention Waterford here in some shape or form. The Alliance Hurling League, their first title in how many years, that looked like a dominant force here. And Desi Hutchinson had a magnificent start of the year with Ballygunner, continued to form in the Alliance Hurling League final against Cork. So I would go with him. Aaron Gillan. Sorry, Jason. But Aaron Gillan for me will be 13. TJ Reid, immense at 14, and Conor Whelan from Kinvara at 15. So, Kieran, what was your selection?
Okay, so for my team of the year, starting in goals, I do think the two goalkeepers that lined out last Sunday in All Ireland were the best two goalkeepers in the country at present. Nicky Quaid and Owen Murphy, two unbelievable shot stoppers, but for me, my number one is Nicky Quaid. I just think his distribution of the ball, he's an integral part of that Limerick team, and I think he's underrated. I think he's so cool in the ball, and stick passes just unbelievable to hand. And I do think if Owen Murphy was in that Limerick setup and being trained the same way, I think he would be producing the same results. So I think it all comes down to coaching, but I think Nicky Quaid is this year is my goalkeeper all-star. Full back line, I'm going to go with Barry Nash. For a guy who's not your, corner back, to slot back there from playing at all positions in the forward, corner forward, wing forward. I think he's really made it his own. I heard him interviewed the other night, and he said, he gets a lot of help from Mike Casey and Sean Finn, and that allows him to get forward. But I just think last year he had a very good year, but I think this year he's just been better again, and I think I have to recognise that. And Barry Nash is first on the full back line for me. Full back, I think Hugh Lawler. I think he's had an unbelievable year this year. You see the men he's been up against. Conor Whelan, he kept him very, very quiet when he played against him in the final, and same for Peter Duggan when they made Clare, and you could say the same. I know Galan scored 3 points off him, but Galan has done a lot more and fullbacks this year. So I think for me, Hugh Lawler from Kenny, fullback. Last position, might raise a few eyebrows for some, but I don't like Sean Finn. To me is the best fullback in the country, and he just goes about his business so quietly. There's never any fuss. But I think this year, for a young guy stepping in, I think Mikey Butler from Kenny takes my last spot. You look at the jobs he's been tasked with this year, and I think it shows the respect and the trust that Cody has in him, like to Mark Cahill Mannion and Tony Kelly, two of the best forwards in the game, and to hold them so well. And I think for that, for me, I think Mikey Butler, cornerback. Starting in the half back line, I think it's probably the one name that will be on everyone's team of the year, and Diarmuid Burns. He's been exceptional, nominee for Hurler of the Year, and probably will take it. 36 points from play, just rock solid. He's just a top defender, and as I said, he'll be on everyone's team of the year, and great year for Diarmuid. Centre back, I think for me, this guy is just playing his best hurling, Declan Hannon from Limerick. He's just so calm, so cool on the ball. Why watch him when he's picking it up in a ruck or getting it out of trouble, and he's just so calm and picks it so easily, and goes without saying his distribution of the ball for Limerick. And I think if he wasn't there, you'd probably see a different Limerick team. And I think other guys who probably had good years were Conlon for Clare. And I think if Wexford had beat Clare, that Damien Reck would definitely have to go into the reckoning, because I think he's been definitely Wexford's best player, and had a great year, centre back for Wexford. Last position in the half back line, I'm going to go for Park Mannion. This guy is just, what you're going to get with him, and I think he's had an unbelievable year for Galway, and he's a real leader back there. I know they have Dahi Burke and McInerney, but he's real tigerish, and he's just a top class defender. Midfield for me, going to go with Adrian Mullen, who definitely would have been criticised up to this year. Look, he's a young player, he's developing, and I think he's really made Midfield is on this year for Kilkenny. Really good performances. I think he had 3 points this weekend, 5 points the week before. So getting on the scoreboard, but really tough guy. And beside him, I have David Fitzgerald for Clare. What a turnaround for this guy to go from the bench last year to starting player, and definitely an All-Star nominee or potential All-Star this year is a testament to how good a year he's had. He's been unbelievable for Clare. My half Ireland, I think for me, Gerard Hegarty, the final performance aside, I think I've documented or I've said it a few times this year that, I think especially since Cian Lynch has been injured, I think everything has gone through Gerard Hegarty. The work rate, his tackling, his scoring is, I think he's just getting better and better for such a big man. The skill he has, I just think he has to be there. And beside him, Kyle Hayes. I think he probably struggled earlier in the year with injury, but playing him in the full forward line where he just didn't look comfortable. I think he needs a bit of ground in front of him, and I think definitely the last 2 games, his best game was against Galway. I think really, without Hayes that day, I don't think Limerick would have overcome Galway. And another great performance to begin, 4 points from play, and that's for me centre forward Kyle Hayes. The last position, there's a real toss-up between 2 players. One is a young guy, Tom Monaghan from Galway. Thought he had an exceptional year, real big man, real threat. The other, Shane O'Donnell, came back into the team, like he'd been transplanted, just bulked up. Wing forward, just the work rate, the will, and even I think Clare were very poor against Kilkenny in the All Ireland semi-final, but I think Shane O'Donnell was one of them warriors who just didn't give up. But I think of the 2, I would have to give it to Shane O'Donnell. I think he's had a great year, and it's good to see him back hurling again. And my full forward line, Aaron Gillan, he's been exceptional this year. Top of the scoring charts from play, real threat, especially in the air. Real handful for defenders. I think he's, for some, Hurler of the Year nominee, and I think he'll be very, very close. Full forward, I have TJ Reid. I think this guy is just, albeit he's not scoring as much in play, but I think he's just involved in everything going forward for Kilkenny. I said that earlier. Real good year, such a threat in the air, such vision and creativity. Just to see passes where other players mightn't see him, and as I said earlier, I think when TJ does step away, how will Kilkenny cope without him? But for the minute, great year I think for TJ, and for me definitely the full forward in the team of the year. And last position again was a kind of a toss up between the Galway man and the Clare man. Firstly, Tony Kelly, what can you say? Pound for pound, probably the best hurler in the country. Means so much to this Clare team, and a lot of synopsis will go into Clare over the next couple of weeks, but I think Wexford and Kilkenny have shown to play Clare you need to mark Kelly, and I'm not sure if that was the cause of the downfall, but I think it's a lot of it. Like, Kelly is involved in so much. He's a wizard with a hurl in his hand, and albeit the last 2 games where he was poor, but I think up to the Munster final, he was incredible. Especially in the Munster final that day, he was everywhere. The other guy was, another guy who was integral to the team, Conor Whelan. I think, he's such a strong, physical, really hard to beat him low or high. And for Galway, I think he needs to tick for Galway to tick. I think back to the Cork game where he probably only got 3 balls but scored 1-2 from impossible angles, and 2 players are integral to their teams. But I think just based on the Munster final performance, I'm going to give to Tony Kelly. He was incredible that day. So that's my hurling team of the year. And I think for hurling of the year, for me, a lot of people are going to say Diarmaid Byrnes, but I think Gillan has been, a real threat for every fullback or cornerback this year. And I think from a Limerick point of view, when missing Peter Casey was a huge negative for Limerick, and I think Gillan really stepped up this year and provided a good for us when we needed it. So for me, my hurler of the year to Gillan. And for a young hurler of the year, there's a choice. There's Mikey Butler, Kieran Joyce from Cork, Cathal O'Neill from Limerick. All really good players. And I think for me, I would give it to Mikey Butler. But either three would be deserving of the prize.
So lads, highs and lows for the year. Rory, what's your highs and lows for the season just ended?
Yeah, I suppose from a Clare perspective, it was just how well Clare performed in Munster. Again, like Limerick, there was a lot of doubts about them coming out of the league. Because Clare and Limerick, remember, they only both had a win over Offaly in the league, and everyone was talking about who the top three coming out of Munster were, and very few had Clare in their top three, and they just performed really well, as James said. It was a team to follow for the year. They were the unexpected team and hurled really well. We had Shane O'Donnell back in form, Tony Kelly producing great performances, and the Munster final then was like that epic game. It was that Munster final that you will remember for years and years, and we're going to be comparing other Munster finals to this one for a long time. So for me, the standout moment was that game, and a wet, drizzly, misty day down in Thurles, and just, warmed up by the cracking hurling that was produced by both teams, and just the fire and intensity and controversy. Even you can't have a good final without controversy after it either. There was plenty of that too. So yeah, that was my high of the year. My low of the year was I suppose kind of an off the field incident was the Shefflin and Cody. It was just disappointing to see, two great Kilkenny men who had done so much for Kilkenny, and animosity between them. And I didn't think the timing was very good with, the tough year Henry has had. And so that was my low point. It's just a pity to see that go on. But yeah, they're my highs and lows. Newcomer of the year, something you mentioned earlier as well, maybe. And I suppose there was plenty of guys. Mikey Butler was probably for Cody to have such faith in Mikey Butler to put a mark on Cathal Mannion, and did a great job on him. And then Tony Kelly just shows what he thinks of him. Then I suppose in Munster you had Kieran Joyce in Cork, outstanding, to put in a newcomer at 6, and for him to be so confident there, and kind of brought Cork, gave a bit of shape to Cork again after the performance against Limerick in the first round. And I suppose even from a Clare point of view, even though he only had cameo performances, Shane Meehan as well has showed that, and Mark Rogers. I know Mark Rogers played a bit last year with Clare, so he's not quite a newcomer, but they kind of give hope for the future for Clare as well.
Perfect, Rory. James, your highs and lows?
Well, high for me, even though it turned out to be a low as the game progressed, was after the last couple of years with COVID, just the atmosphere there that was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh before, as the ball was about to be thrown in before Limerick and Cork. I thought it was fervent there. It was, we've been kind of starved of that the last couple of years of COVID. I thought Tony Kelly's sideline cut. I just think that's arguably moment of the year. Really, it was like to take that on, and you're facing in I just thought it was an unbelievable score, and it showed unbelievable balls really to take that on, and to have the execution then to deliver on it. That's probably the high point for me. Low point as well, I agree with Rory on that, actually, that was very unfortunate to see the whole Shefflin and Cody handshake, and how it all played out, as Rory rightly pointed out, after the tough year that Henry's had. And the other low point for me then would be, I just thought that some of the lower, some of the teams like your Westmeads, your Antrams, your Kerry, the teams are trying to break into the top tier. I thought they were kind of treated just a little bit like kind of like castaways really by top brass and GAA. We saw, for Westmeath, an unbelievable result for Westmeath was draw against Wexford, and sure, nobody saw it, like, because the camera work was absolutely pathetic at it. And then you're looking then at, if they're promoting the Tailteann Cup, and you're looking there what's going on in the in Joe McDonough, and I just thought, like, there's a lot that they got wrong with that, really, with the scheduling. You had the whole fiasco then with Kerry. If they did win it, that they'd have to go into a playoff. They're not going straight into Munster. And then thirdly, with that as well, was the launch. Like, after both teams had played in the final, they're going in then to a preliminary qualifier match, which is knockout. The All Ireland Championship has started, and just launch of the championship, and you don't have either Kerry or Antrim represented, which I just don't think it's a good look for the GAA. So that's one of the low points for me.
I think my low point of the year, and it's hard to be critical because I think it's been a very good hurling championship. We've had some great games, but in both round robin, Leinster and Munster, and into the All Ireland series. And I think the negative for me is that I think it's just all over too early. Mid-July, no one associates with All Ireland final. Families have holidays booked, and I just don't think it's a good time. I think we're a month too early, and I think if the GAA could look at maybe second or third week in August might be better. I still think that it allows time to the clubs to play. I think generally September, end of August, September, October are good months in Ireland, and I think for me it's just over way too early. Regarding the high points, there's so many. I suppose you look back at individual games. I think Damien Dreck for Wexford against Kilkenny, he's stopped on his belly, picks up the ball. I think Tony Kelly's sideline against Limerick in the Munster final to level the game. That'll be watched back for years to come. But I think I'm going to be selfish in this one, and I think the high point for me is not just the All Ireland win for Limerick, but I think how the year has gone for Limerick. There's been so many different challenges for the team. I suppose the league probably wasn't a good league, be it planned or not, I don't know, but there's a lot of negativity around the team during the league, and pundits saying that they'd run their course and their reign was over, but and that to add to the injuries, different stages. I think Peter Casey losing the All Ireland final last year was a huge loss. Kyle Hayes at different stages, and then to lose Lynch in the Waterford game. Like, I think most teams to lose their main man and to go on and win in Ireland, I think it's just a huge achievement. If you compare that to Tony Kelly of Clare or Conor Whelan in Galway and TJ Reid in Kilkenny, how would these teams survive without the main men? And I think it's a testament to probably how good the Limerick team and panel is, but to survive I suppose looking back, definitely the Clare game in the Munster final, the Galway game in the semi-final, and obviously Kilkenny in the final. All three teams threw everything they had at Limerick on them 3 days, and for them to come out on top, and to do it without any panic, and I suppose for me, I grew up thinking I'd never see Limerick win All Ireland, and it's a roller coaster time for us as Limerick fans, but I've gone from thinking I'd never see an All Ireland win to probably witnessing one of the best teams. It'll go down in history as one of the best teams ever to play hurling.
For myself, obviously Limerick fan, delighted with the 3 in a row, but I'm thinking more on the underage finals that happened this year. The emergence of Offaly in the minors. Rory, you'd called it out from February that this was a side to really look out for, and they certainly delivered throughout the summer. I think they galvanised the county. In Offaly, they were very unfortunate in terms of how the final went against Tipperary late on, but I think it's with Leo O'Connor in charge of that setup, you're seeing the foundations of a very good resurgent programme in Offaly, which is great to see. I suppose the under-20 rule for me was a low point, particularly in thinking about Cathal O'Neill here on an All-Ireland final against Kilkenny. One game and he was out. And let's bear in mind, Rory, hate to remind you, against Clare, he was instrumental in getting Limerick a result against Clare. You think, from a Clare perspective, what might have been, particularly in that under-20 campaign. So I think that rule has to be looked at in some shape or form. For me, administration-wise, needs to be better from the GAHQ. I think of the All-Ireland build-up on the Sunday, the Jubilee teams of Clare and Wexford, and with a stadium half empty, to acknowledge heroes from the 90s. Those are two iconic teams, just given the All-Ireland breakthroughs, and for not a full house to really kind of acknowledge and appreciate the efforts of these guys 25 years on, I thought was a little bit disrespectful. The match programme, the Clare All-Ireland Roll of Honour, Gaff, Rory.
Wiped off. Well, gone. They're gone, Rory. You have to start again. Yeah.
It took us 81
You're paying
years.
€7 for a match programme. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're paying
right.
€7 for a match programme. You know, you might as well editorially review it before you actually release it. And that was a downright disgrace.
That's basic stuff, really, isn't it? I suppose another
81 years and they wiped it out in like an instant.
Yeah, another low point I thought of as well was I just forgot about it till the second was Hawkeye, which really I mean that's I don't know, like right, it's back up and running, but how much faith you have in it? Like it's just really that's really you'd be questioning it, wouldn't you? Like I know it's like obviously it's on the football side of things, but the technologies in use from both codes, and I thought that's not very clever for the GA either.
And to balance things, I suppose, as well, just to finish with a high point maybe, and also from Leinster was everyone, we've been raving about the Munster Championship, and I suppose we spent, I don't know, definitely 70% of our time talking about Munster Championship games here because that's where the action was. But then we had this great game of Wexford and Kilkenny in Nolan Park, where Wexford like really kind of turned their championship around, and we had that great piece of defending from Marek on the goal line, and some of the scores Wexford got that day. It was huge for them to beat Kilkenny in Nolan Park, and I thought that was another great moment in the championship. And was it really kind of, I suppose, in a way, probably woke Kilkenny up a bit too. And Kilkenny were far better after that. That was their, But even on the day, like Wexford had an answer for them in nearly every department. It was just a super game of hurling, and that was the high point really from the Leinster Championship.
It kind of showcases as well, doesn't it, the success of the round robin in terms of you're playing your games at your county grounds. Like had that game been in Croke Park, like obviously the different dynamics in Croke Park where you need a 50,000-60,000 crowd for it to be at least, for otherwise like you're talking 30-40 there, kind of gets lost a little bit, And I suppose that's just in similar vein as well. You touched on it, Mark, with the minor championship, that just that scene, like the Leinster final and the All Ireland final, like packed to the rafters, and it just epic. It looked epic on TV,
But speaking of teams having home advantage, James, I'm surprised you didn't mention that Cork give up theirs to play Clare this year.
Yeah, they won't be doing that again. They won't be doing that again. I'd say, yeah, that's like I suppose if you were the other, I just only just like we're getting into things now, but the other low point as well really would be that statement by the Tipperary County Board for me on Colin Bonner. I just thought it was in poor taste.
Indeed. I suppose Liam Cahill in charge, guys. What's your general feelings on that?
I suppose my feeling on it is, like, for me, the jury is out in Liam Cahill. Like, people are portraying him as some sort of a genius here. Okay, he did a great job with the Tip under 20s when one year they got hammered by Cork in the Munster final, and so he turned them around in 4 or 5 weeks to beat Cork, that same team, in the final again. But like with Waterford, you can't say he doesn't have talent at his disposal with Waterford. And now I suppose the thing is you have a few kind of mavericks in terms of Austin Gleeson and just trying to get a team out of them. And okay, winning a National League, but we kind of saw how seriously the likes of Clare, Limerick, took the league this year. Galway as well, were one day kind of trying, the next day, so you'd have to like put question marks over the value of the National Hurling League this year, and just their performances in the Munster Championship were so off that I for me anyway, he hasn't proven himself. No, he could transpire to be the greatest Tipperary manager. It could happen yet, but I don't see him yet as being this. It's not like you're putting in Brian Cody or somebody like that over the team. And the other thing is, if it fails with Liam Cahill, where do they go from here? Because they haven't treated Bonner with any respect, giving him just the 1 year when we knew he was doing a transition job. And in fairness, the likes of Jar Brown came in, Mark Keogh, they all look like, they have now got a good championship under their belts and showed flashes of, real talent. And so it looked like Tip were going to be, that this was the low point and they're going to be progressing up anyway. But now, change of managers, more upheaval. Yeah, look, as I said, it could turn out to be a great move for Tipperary, but if they go and lose all 4 games next year, where do they go from there then?
That's a very good point. I don't know what they'll do in that scenario, because they're almost like he's coming in like the Messiah, right? You're right in that. I would rate him highly, but I think ultimately he did a good. I know it finished awfully at Waterford, but ultimately I think he did a good job. You have to remember when he came in, Waterford were in desperate rabble, and he had them competing. They've got a win over Kilkenny, which they and they were got them to an All-Ireland final, or final, semi-final, and then this year it imploded for whatever reason. But the one thing that kind of sticks in my kind of throat about it is that he committed to the Waterford setup, and I just think the manner in which he's left is. It's not leaving. It's kind of given the impression that when to go and get stuff, he's decided that that's it, I'm out of here. So what happens? You're right, Rory. What happens if it goes badly? We don't know. All the rumours went on in Tip in terms of players going to the county boards and allegedly saying that they were unhappy with the preparation. What happens if that happens next year? When does he walk then? And then what's the? You're right. I don't know. That would be very, very interesting if it doesn't work out with Cahill. I don't know what Tip are going to do then, because they've set an awful precedent here that Bonner took that job. It was in the meeting with the executive that he had last December, it was accepted they were going into transition, and now they're saying, "Oh, we didn't get out of Munster. We lost 4 games. You relieved your duties." So, what's the so if they're still accepting that they're in transition, what's their minimum target for Cahill for next year? I don't know. That's going to be the interesting thing to see.
The statements coming out from Tipperary have been very inconsistent at best. We were told kind of in a statement that when Liam Cahill was taking the job that he was approached by the Tip County Board last year in the off season and had, politely rejected it. So this inference that there had been no contact made before Colin Bonner's dismissal, I think this had been in the works for a little bit, I think, to be fair. When you see Tommy Dunn, Paul Curran and the backroom staff leaving the day before our kind of the infamous PowerPoint presentation slide deck that Colin Bonner gave to the management committee. So I think from that perspective, James, I do agree. It set a dangerous precedent. But the one thing about Liam Cahill is he's very single-minded. What did he do when he went to Waterford? First thing he did was he dropped marquee guys, Maurice Shanahan, Noel Connors. He set the tone, shock and awe tactic, got Waterford galvanised. I think he's going to do similar here. I wouldn't be all surprised if there's 1 or 2 senior players in Tipperary feeling a little bit uncomfortable at the moment with Liam Cahill in charge, that there may be no room for them left in the squad next season, and really look at the underage setups. You look at his minor, he's under 21, under 20, he built a squad. He was very focused in terms of the players he wanted. The work rate was everything, along with Michael Bevins as well, the hurling skills coach here. So I think he'll leave no stone unturned. I definitely do think that the strength and conditioning will certainly improve. Rome wasn't built in a day. But as you say, his mantra has to win a championship game in Munster next season. If he doesn't, then Colin Bonner was relieved of his duties. Horrible word. But the fact of the matter is, that is what Liam Cahill has to do. He has to basically get this team competing in the right direction and be competitive in Munster. I think that has been this 3-year contract means absolutely nothing given to what happened with Colin Bonner. But I think all indications to Prairie is they're happy that Liam Cahill is back, but there's so much work to be done here. And I think you're going to see 1 or 2 of the really experienced guys from the 2010s teams. Maybe this has been their last season. So it's, again, this transitional squad that Colin Bonner had mentioned in his press release, same with Cashel and Cormac. That is going to be what's facing Michael Bevins and Liam Cahill here. It's going to be an interesting watch in the off-season.
I tell you what's going to be an interesting game next year is that Tip Waterford game.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
You know, and we don't know now at this point who's taken over in Waterford, but yeah, like that's and unfortunately, it's a long way off it now, but that's very, very tasty at this point out, you know. Be looking forward to that one.
Could be an awful lot of subplots, so an awful lot of new managerial teams coming in, teams being revitalised. I think it'll be a very interesting championship next season. I don't think it's as clear cut as Limerick being clear favourites here. I think if you're a Galway, you're a Clare, you're any of the Munster teams here, you're going to have a right crack at Limerick again next season. You know, you think of Galway here, lads. You know, literally the 2 All Ireland semi-finals down the stretch. Same with Clare in the Munster Hurling final. They were neck and neck with Limerick, so the gap has significantly closed here, and I think it's all set up for a fascinating championship next season, and the league as well, identifying new players. But I suppose a high point, lads, is club championship season's kicking off pretty soon here, Rory. Clare is kicking off this weekend.
Yeah, tomorrow at 12 o'clock it kicks off with Six Mile Bridge versus Newmarket, which is, you know, it's like the old firm. They're both the teams with the highest amount of championships won, Newmarket being top of the roll of honour, but Six Mile Bridge kind of catching them. We're winning one every 3 years as our current rate of winning championships. But the interesting thing is, like, the Bridge team has hardly changed over the last 6-7 years. It's, if anything, maybe 1 or 2 changes. It's still like 13-14 of the same team. And is there another year in them? Age-wise, they're not, you know, they're not that old. They're all around the 29-30 mark, which for a club team should be fine. But you're just wondering, you know, in Clare, like, it's a funny situation in Clare. There is no real kind of team, like, you know, in Limerick and the Pearshig are kind of the big guns to beat, and in Galway, St. Thomas's, there is no team like that. Like Six Mile Bridge maybe are that team that other teams will think if we beat Six Mile Bridge, we'll win the championship. So, you know, so it's a great start to the championship, and probably game of the weekend will be Clonlara versus Fecal, also in that group, which is on tomorrow evening, I think, at 7 p.m. in Six Mile Bridge. But what CRG are doing is they're streaming all the games. It's €10 a game, and I think there's €20 for the whole weekend package. If anyone is looking for something to do for the day tomorrow, you'll have 4 live matches in a row.
I think as well that it's, you know, the kind of the media out there, like with the split season as well, that there's kind of this perception out there really that you know, the hurling's over, and that we have no hurling between now and next year. But like, we do have, as you rightly said, club championship are running off now, and they're running off at a nice time of the year, and that, like, this is perfect time for hurling here. Like we've been given out before that you could be at club championship games in the back end of the year, and you know, it's the conditions are awful, like, and it's very difficult to be playing good hurling in you know, like very boggy pitches, very wet conditions. But this is you know, for, like, I suppose we really would be trying to encourage people to get out there really, and to go support you know, go look at there, because there is, as we said, there is hurling going to be on this summer, and so for people to get out there and enjoy it in the good weather, like, so like, I mean, the jury will still be out on the split season, but we'll, you know, we'll take stock of that, I suppose, when the calendar year is over, and see how it worked out.
Absolutely. James, just in terms of Cork championships, I suppose divisionals have been in full swing for the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you're in terms of the Cork Senior Championship, there's no real, like, for me, there's no real, I think it's, you know, there's no real standout team in that you'd say that's, you know, that one team looks like significantly over the rest. Maybe Sarsfield's might give a slight edge to, but in McKilly would be there or thereabouts. Talking about your Black Rocks and your Middletons, but it promises to be closely fought. I'd say that like, there's no, like in McKilly in previous years, you know, have been the dominant, you know, going back to 3 or 4 years, they've been the dominant team, but this year, it looks fairly wide open for me, so it should be roll on a good summer of it now, you know.
Absolutely. There's no rest for the Limerick Intercounty hurlers anyway, because Limerick Senior Hurling Championship is kicking off the end of July. So that's kind of an intriguing league set. I suppose you have top 3 in the Pearshig, Patrick's well. Bearshy Patrick as well, and Kilmallock, reigning champions. Forgot them, shouldn't have. So, and then you've Doon. It's going to be very competitive there. I'm looking forward to seeing Kildimo, Palace Kennery, what they bring to the table. This Kyle Hayes' club here, you know, they had a magnificent season last year with their footballers as well, entering into the senior grade as well. So, again, an awful lot of competitive games. Being from Ahan here, it'd be interesting to see how Ahan are evolving. It has been a young squad. I think this is the year now to really start kind of getting more competitive and seeing if we can get to a quarterfinal stage of the quarterfinals of the county. So I think it'll be very interesting games there. They'll be streamed, no doubt, in due course. But yeah, it's very exciting, guys. And even in Tipperary, they've already played a divisional. So I think for an awful lot of counties here, Wexford as well, Kieran being in Dubrovnik, that's already 3 or 4 rounds into the championship. So I think go out and support your local club here. You know, magnificent summer evenings here. Your club needs you. You know, Intercounty has been great, but it's all down to the club. And yeah, best of luck to everyone. Guys, we'll leave it there. It's been absolutely privileged to have Ruairi Walsh, James Mulcare and Kieran Collins on with me there for the Intercounty Hurling season. We'll call back in probably next few weeks, lads, see how the club championships are going, see how things are shaping up in various counties. But yeah, thank you very much for your contributions, lads. We've gotten an awful lot of great feedback from an awful lot of people on the podcast. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us on, Mark. Yeah, I very enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. So until, I suppose, in a few weeks' time or whatever, take care and yeah, see you soon. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.